Hey guys, Tony Maritato here. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Alabama state requirements for physical therapy continuing education renewals for an existing licensee. So behind me on the screen, you can see a couple of their guidelines. And I have to say, Alabama is probably one of the more liberal states that I've ever researched. So let's take a look at a couple of things. First, renewals are annual. Here in Ohio, we have to do it biannually. In Alabama, the renewal is annual. License expires October 1st of the year following its issuance. So the annual renewal period is July 1st through September 30th at midnight. Annual renewal fees, $93 for a PTA, $130 for a PT. Now, today is October 29th, 2022. I want you to know when this information is being published. It's a 10-hour continuing education requirement for the renewal application. All licensees are required to renew their license in 2021. All licensees who receive their license in 2021 must renew a minimum of 2 hours Alabama jurisprudence continuing education with their 2022 renewal. Licensees who were licensed by endorsement, score, transfer must submit an additional 8 hours of continuing ed for a total of 10 hours. Continuing education certificates will be submitted, uploaded with your renewal application. Continuing education certificates must clearly show the course date of completion, times of instructors or activity, contact hours, objectives, goals, the identify the target audience and describe the prerequisite of level of experience needed. Courses must be conducted by experts in the subject matter, either by education, training, or experience. So what's really interesting about this is Alabama doesn't require a formal approval process for continuing education. So if you're a continuing education course creator, you want to make sure you abide by those guidelines, and you want to make it as easy as possible for students of your course to have that information available. You also obviously have to provide a certificate of completion. So practicing without a valid license can include a fine of up to $500 and a term of imprisonment or both. In terms of the continuing education itself, course providers, be advised that pre-approval for courses offered is not required in the state of Alabama. We honor any coursework relevant to the practice of physical therapy. That's awesome, because a lot of states charge the content course creators to get approval and CEU credits. That just drives up the cost of the course. It makes it one more barrier in between the educator and the student. For licensees, it's your professional judgment to determine if the continuing education activities completed are applicable, appropriate, and meet the requirements of the board. All Con Ed offerings, regardless of the source, will be accepted, provided that it's directly related to the licensee's practice of physical therapy and meets the general guidelines. Now, I'll put a link to the general guidelines down below just so you can see. This is the PDF document that they're referring to. So it's got a bunch of criteria. It's really well created. You can easily use it. Let's jump back in here real quick. Alabama jurisprudence. 2 hours of Alabama physical therapy jurisprudence covering both the Practice Act and the Administrative Code are required for those licensed in 2021. General physical therapy ethics course may apply to the additional 8 hours of continuing education if required, but does not meet the 2 hours of the Alabama jurisprudence requirement. So in other words, you have to do dedicated jurisprudence for 2 hours. After your initial renewal, 2 hours of jurisprudence covering Alabama's Practice Act and the Administrative Code will be required in years that end in 0 or 5. So you do not have to do the jurisprudence every single renewal period, every single 12 months. You have to do it in years that end in 0 or 5. And then below are some links to Alabama jurisprudence providers that are accepted. A couple other quick things for 2022 licensee renewal requirements. All licensees are required to have a minimum of 10 hours of continuing education unless license has been obtained by exam within the past calendar year. So if you're a new grad, if you were issued a license this calendar year, you do not have to do the 10 hours. All licensees licensed by endorsement in 2021 must complete the 8 hours of continuing education and the 2 hours of Alabama jurisprudence. Continuing education submitted must be within the current 2-year compliance period of October 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2022. Instructions for the renewal application are here in a link. Renewal information here down below. So guys, like I said, I mean, Alabama is probably one of the more liberal states when it comes to continuing education. That's awesome. That's great to know. If you've been considering creating a continuing education course to help elevate the profession, I would encourage you to do it. Even if you have one outside the state of Alabama, the great news is you don't have to pay a separate fee to get CEU approval in the state of Alabama. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. I'm going to work through the list of all 50 states to review each state's specific physical therapy continuing education requirements. Thanks, guys.